first one,
morning meeting on the 14th.
the second one's the 6th,
Mr. Green.
at least for the county.
All right, call this meeting to order of our District Number 35 Governing Board of Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District. It is 5 o'clock, and it is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, for this regular board meeting. Would we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Ms. Hogan, if you could lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Mr. Rene Ramirez.
Here.
Ms. Susan Fobian.
Here.
Mr. John Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Brad Beach.
Present.
Myself, Joel Kramer. All members are present, and we do have a quorum. Item number B, adoption agenda. Mr. Verdugo.
Yes, a couple of changes. If we can remove under information discussion action, item B, policy supervisor GCH, that has undergone additional changes after we had published, so there are additional changes. We'll bring that back at the next board meeting. Under consent agenda, want to correct Mary Hayes should be Hays, not Hayes. And then under E-PARs, remove Rosalia Ochoa from the E-PARs.
Excuse me.
Rosalia Ochoa, remove her from the E-PARs.
All right. So do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda with the said changes for Mr. Verdugo?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, adoption of the agenda is. Subject C, call to the public.
No cost.
We have no calls to the public. All right, moving along then. Number 2, presentations. Superintendent's report, Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you. A few items. I think before the meeting we were able to see a few of the video. The field at the high school is now for use. So we do have the high school football team practicing and on schedule to have their first game, which will be homecoming on October 29th. So we're excited about that. Did a walkthrough. Just some notes of the field. One, it's obviously looks beautiful. We have one of the high-end fields, so it instead of black pebbles that we normally, it is at coconut shavings. So it's much more cool than what the black would normally be, and it's obviously a little more for those that are worried about having any issues with non-compliance with our rubber and things of that nature. It's supposed to be better for the environmentalists and things like that. So we're excited about the field, and the rest of it are still underway. PAC is also getting close. It should be closer to substantial by the end of the week, as we mentioned last board meeting. I also want to notify the board that Mr. Shaw is working with SD Crane to determine what that gift will be, and we'll bring that. They're still working on it because they are taking some input from the staff, and so wanted to make sure that the board was aware that at our next meeting we should have what the actual gift for board approval will be, and so they are still working on that. But substantial completion is on track. They're working 24 hours for the next few days to make sure that that gets done. Yeah, so it's really looking nice. I'm excited to have structures. Then once we get the cafeteria renovated, we'll have another venue, so we'll have multiple venues, where currently we don't sort of have any. Now we'll have multiple venues, so it's an exciting opportunity. I want to congratulate the middle school cross-country team. I know that Mr. Hay did the last meeting, but they did receive a sportsmanship award, so it's always great to have them not only excel, on the field, but also be recognized for their sportsmanship, so, which is great. But that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Subject B, governing board member report, Ms. Volby.
Other than hearing that everybody had a great and safe break, that's really all I have. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Beach.
Yeah, I hope everybody had a great break, and we're down to our last 9 weeks, so let's finish strong. And looking at all these donations on the consent agenda, with the individuals that donated the Disney trip, the McDonald's, the meals, and the T-Mobile hotspots, thanks to our community for those donations also. That's it.
All right. Mr. Hayes.
I want to echo what Mr. Verdugo said about congratulating the Rio Rico Middle School team on their sportsmanship award, and also Mr. Jorge Trujillo on his win at the Rattler Invitational this weekend. Thanks.
Good. All right, Mr. Ramirez.
Yeah, Mr. Beach covered the donations. I was going to say something about it, but he did a good job. I got a chance to sneak around and go take a look at that field, and wow, man, that's some real eye candy. That red out there, the Rio Rico Hawks and both ends and the end zone. Wow. I just took a look at it from up above. It's really something else. It's beautiful. What a beautiful field. So I'm sure our community is really going to enjoy that for years to come. So good job to you guys. Good job to your team. That's off. And again, Mr. Goodley, a great vision. When I see that, I think of your vision. Like I've said many times before, and I'll say it again, there are very few superintendents, I think, that have vision when they come into this job. But you guys certainly have that on your team. Good job.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Good thing you didn't say it was going to help with recruiting, because then we said, well, the eye candy. Yeah? Anyway, yeah, it is. Thank you, Dr. Lundenville, for showing us that clip of them already stepping onto that nice field that we were told is going to last us at least 10 years, so hopefully it's longer than that. But certainly it's just the start of what we're going to be so proud of with this district in the next year or two. So, yes, and everything else, yes, hopefully the first 9 weeks went well. Hopefully academic achievement continues, and with that said, that's all I have to say. All right. Move on to item number 3, information, discussion, action. Subject A, ASBA letter, Mr. Verdugo, Superintendent.
Thank you. So I'll give you a little background. Mrs. Hilla Brown, was a member of the ASBA trustee board, representing not only the district of Santa Cruz County, and did an outstanding job representing our county, but also representing all of the customers of ASBA. And so she went through the process of being re-nominated, and her and the chair, Superintendent Paul Ty, were not moved forward by the SBA executive director, even though the committee recommended those two to continue. She solicited new members to replace Ms. Brown and Paul Ty. And you also may have noticed that Chris Thomas has also resigned from ASBA. And he has been, for 22 years, the legal representation with somebody that we've come to really appreciate from our district, somebody that we can contact. So in conversation with Mr. Kramer, he was not aware that Ms. Brown was not renewed, and she was set to be the chair. She had been very successful as the ASBA trustee, including asking for an audit that saved ASBA members $8 million in a pharmacy audit. And so her reward was then to be not renewed to the board. And so obviously, he's okay with being removed from the board, but not happy with the direction of ASBA under the leadership of the executive director. And so, again, in conversation with Mr. Kramer, wanted to make sure that the board was aware how much we support Ms. Brown and all of her work, but also just notifying ASBA that we're not happy with that process, even because she was nominated and went through the process and then was not taken to the actual ASBA board to be voted upon. Only the new members were taken. And so we've drafted a letter, and what we're asking is, can we know that the board only acts as a group, and so we want to solicit your input, if there's any changes you would like to that letter, but also asking that you approve as a board sending that letter to ASBA, just notifying them that we support our member, Ms. Brown, and also do not agree with the way that the executive director moved forward with different nominations, because now there is no representation from Santa Cruz County. And so really there's no representation of the I-19 corridor, which Ms. Brown had done a very good job representing, including, didn't even mention, bringing the Mexican ability to go across the line insurance. That was her doing. So she's been a great representative of our area and saving ASBA customers money. And that's what the Board of Trustees is designated to do. So I don't know if there's any questions that I can answer, or anything else that you would like to add, Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, no, you did it very well. I was a little more adamant about this. I know that, thank you, Dr. Lundville and Mr. Verdugo. I put a lot more emotion into this letter than I probably should have. But again, I was doing it because it was one of our own. And I was very disappointed when I heard that. And if you've got a chance to read the letters, especially from Dr. Paul Ty, I mean, he gave a lot of insight to that. I mean, he was a little more, obviously, his own personal belief. But certainly, I think our letter is crafted well to just say that, you know, we didn't feel that there was some, there wasn't a lot of, I guess, what's the word I want to say, is it wasn't as open as it probably should have been. Though also Pima County is not covered as well. So we have Santa Cruz County and Pima County with no representation. You know, the geographical stuff and everything else is in there, Mr. Verdugo, but I'll just so you know, I reached out to, you know, Gallus Unified, one member there. They're going to support it. They're going to want to see. They may even be watching our video tonight to see what we're going to do. They said that, at least one member said that they'll take it to their board to get approved. I reached out to Kathleen,
Sir.
our county rep, talked to her about it, what we were going to do. I said hopefully our board approves this. I said tomorrow morning, once it's approved, we will send these 3 letters to her, where she will disperse to the rest of the boards in our county, but hopefully they do the same thing. And that's that's kind of what the legwork, just so you guys know, that's where we're at as far as what Mr. Verdugo said. So any discussion, Susan, Ms. Fogey?
No, I'm fine with the letter. I'm glad that you had contacted NUSD to find out if they would also support. And yeah, I don't think that action should go without something being said.
Speech.
Likewise.
Mr. Hayes.
Likewise, but for some reason I never saw the letter from Mr.
Superintendent Ty.
From Superintendent Ty, so. And just perusing my email real quick, I don't even see it in there, so I did search for it. So I'd like to see that, just fill in my information.
Yeah, it is very detailed, so you can make sure that was shared before, because it does, him as the chair explains the process that occurred, as well as some other information points on how much money goes from ASBA into ASBA, and how there may be, in his mind, a conflict there. Because it demonstrates, most trusts, that keep the money in the trust, not to another organization. And so ASBA is receiving a lot of ASBA funds. So that is not to the the trust members.
And it just provides more detail to back up, but if they're not following what is the normal policy of the trust, that is a problem of epic proportions.
Yeah, and technically, they did, but in a sense, they did not by the nominating committee, because their nominating committee is their executive board. And so, obviously, Ms. Brown and Superintendent Ty could not be part of that committee, so they had other members, and those members put forward the two executive board members as their nominees, but then she solicited other members outside. And they're, again, never disparage other districts, but they're very small districts that have less than 200 or 100 students, and don't represent what I would think would be like the I-19 corridor that has a large number of ASBE members, as well as the request was for diversity. I don't think you can get any more diverse than Ms. Brown, being a Hispanic female. For sure. So I think that's something that is also of a concern, that was not replaced by another Hispanic female or somebody. Again, I never like to use that, but if you're looking for diversity, I think she fits that criteria.
Well, and I noticed in the letter it talked about the geographic diversity, and it's just like, a lot of times on these, you look at the membership, and geographic diversity seems to be as disparaging as possible, the great state of Maricopa.
Yes.
Unfortunately, though, they have 3 members from Cochise County. They had one, and they put 2 of the new members are from Cochise County, which Mr. Verdugo was referencing to 2 small districts. So that's kind of like, well, wait a minute.
No,
There's a lot of
I won't say what I'm thinking now, so.
I guess the word I was trying to say when I was saying is transparency. There's not a lot of transparency. And certainly, yes, please get those, the letter of Dr. Paul Ty. If that's not in there, you guys have to, because that's what sparked mine. Yeah, I don't think we sent it,
Okay.
but certainly probably we can do it even tonight before we leave here.
Yeah.
Can you send it to the rest of the board so you guys can see it? That's what got me fired up, because I was like, well, wait a minute. Granted, sometimes I do more than what I should off the cuff of emotion, but, and you saw my letter as opposed to what was tweaked by.
If it was something like, they'd serve 3 terms and you're not supposed to serve more than 2 terms normally, I could understand that, but, to stop the process go from having something that has been, a nominating committee has made a recommendation to arbitrarily ignore the recommendation and solicit for somebody else instead. It reeks, for lack of a better term.
Mr. Ramirez.
No, I agree with Ms. Fogan. She wrapped it up concisely. Thank you.
I'll pull it back, the last part then. There are the 4 letters then. They're not here now. Hopefully that if one of you make that motion to include, because Dr. Paul Ty said we could include his letter and be shared. Ms. Brown said the same thing.
Yes.
So when you make the motion, you can include Dr. Paul Ty's letter, Ms. Brown's letter, our letter that was revised, along with the 1 letter of support that we'll send. So it'll be 4 different articles to that we can send out to the rest of the boards, I should say, and to our county rep. So, do I hear a motion then to approve the 4 letters and the letter to ASBA regarding representation from Santa Cruz County 35 and Santa Cruz County as presented, and as I said, Dr. Ty's letter, Isabel Brown's letter, our letterhead, and the letter of support?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
One question, just looking over it, would it be helpful to, oh, never mind, it is there, never mind, I missed it. See, I was going to ask about CCing the executive board. So I saw that, for somehow I missed it the first week there, so never mind.
I think that's where we're addressing it to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think that's where Dr. Paul Ty, John, just for you to know, that's where he had initially addressed his letter.
Yeah, when I opened it up, it opened up below that, so.
But yeah, no, we just certainly want you to let us know what this direction on this.
Yep.
There was a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? Hearing none. All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
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 Aye. It's unanimous, 5-0 to support this. Thank you all. All right, now we move into item B, more ASBA policy.
Yeah, so again, these are the policy advisories, professional staff contracts and compensation. Again, we removed GCH because there were some additional changes, and we'll bring that back. So we just want to make sure we review that before we bring it back. But the recommendation is to approve GCB and GDB as presented. Any questions?
Comments, concerns, input? John?
No, none at this time.
Ms. Colby?
None at this time.
Mr. Beach? Mr. Mears?
Nothing, thank you.
Really? Okay. So, with that, so we can back here then. So the recommended action is to adopt the policy advisories GCB excluding GCH, but GDB as recommended, as the Arizona School Board Association as presented by Mr. Ruben.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Move on. Subject C, COVID-19 update. Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you. As you know, we mentioned at our last meeting that we'd be coming back with our COVID-19 protocols update, discussing vaccines, where we're at with the numbers in our community, how our mask mitigation is going. So I'd like to invite Dr. Lunderville up to discuss some of those numbers, some of the things that we've discussed, and I think will continue is with our mask mitigation as it is. I think that we have, again, a very common sense approach to how we're utilizing masks inside the classroom. The numbers have shown that has been positive for us to continue to use that process. Athletics, sports have the ability to not use them. Again, we do encourage everyone to use them whenever they're able to outside if they want to, but again, they do not have to wear them outside. Again, like tonight, when we're properly spaced and having direct instruction, again, you're able to not wear it. But again, if you're in class and you're close quarters and you're together, so our recommendation is to continue with that. I want to answer any questions with that, but again, Dr. Lerba has some statistics I think that are showing that it is being positive compared to previous. So Dr. Lerba.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. The first thing that I wanted to share with you is countywide data. Santa Cruz County as a whole is still listed as a high transmission area. And what that looks specifically at is the total number of positive COVID cases per 100,000 people in the last 7 days. Right now we're at 117. That would mean that we continue to be in that highest level of substantial transmission throughout the county. That is not zip code data, that's the entire county. The percent of positive cases is still listed as moderate transmission at 7.7%. So that is the county data. Our district data, within our district, we continue to have families and students that are eligible to receive the first and second dose of the vaccine, completing those 2 sequential vaccines, and so we're still moving towards 100%, which is nice. We currently have less than 5 active cases. All of those came reported Monday over the fall break, so we don't have any concerns with extreme transmission or transmission amongst those here at school. But like we mentioned before, we do monitor the county data because a lot of our students go to other places in the county and also across the line. So that was part of our recommendation to leave the mask mandate or the mask mitigation in place because of those countywide numbers. But I do not have any concerns with our mitigation protocol at this time at the schools or in any of the district buildings or facilities. Would you like me to stop before going into vaccines?
Yes, yes,
Mr.
so
President?
again, is there any questions that we have about the protocols or where we're at with that?
See, shaking head no, other than Mr. Weir.
Okay.
So far. Yeah, so the next we wanted to discuss was the vaccine. Now that it is been found that not legal by the state to allow us to require the vaccine, we are looking at the possibility, again, the board would have to approve because it would be part of a policy change. So, and it would be considered emergency, so we wouldn't have to do the first or second reading. We would just be able to bring it to, but I wanted to discuss tonight what that would look like. And there would be some exemption things in place following, you know, the guidelines. We would work with our attorney to draft that, but the recommendation, I think, from our team is that we would then require the vaccine for staff. We would not do that for students at this point, just because there's still some discussion that needs to be had, and we'll bring that back at a later date. But we were really asking staff to present their cards so we can get an idea of how many it would affect, but then also looking at the exemptions, but requiring by, I think it was January.
January 10th.
January 10th, giving staff that time to get that done. But again, it's up to the board because it is a policy change. So we wanted to make sure we had that discussion with the board. We know that the best way to mitigate against it is to have the vaccine. And so, but again, we know that there are both sides to that of, you know, depending on people's choice and things like that. But we also know that it is a way to keep our staff working, keep them safe, keep them in the classroom. So, Dr. Lerner, if you wanted to comment.
Sure. Part of what we've been looking at specifically is, of course, mitigation. That's all we're looking at all the time is mitigation. And I know people's opinion and their own personal beliefs sometimes come into that, but in our district's case, I do feel like we have data from this time last year compared to where we're at now. This time last year, the county was in high transmission, and you'll recall that we were shut down. The reason that we were not operating at that point, aside from the recommendations from the Department of Education and Arizona Health Services, is that we did not have the vaccine. Since that time, we've been able to compare data from prior to vaccine to when we were at a percentage at a school site that I would consider herd immune. And if you take the high school, for example, even if a student comes in contact, the quarantine time doesn't exist. We don't have to isolate or quarantine all these individuals who have been exposed. They monitor for symptoms because they're fully vaccinated. So that's one benefit that we have. One thing that we do struggle with in terms of coverage is that, say for instance, Miss Fobian tests positive. Anyone who was anywhere near Miss Fobian through contact tracing would be asked to isolate and then possibly quarantine for up to 14 days. So you can imagine the number of staff we would have out, the number of students we would have out prior to the vaccine. So that was part of our thinking as well. Our student vaccines are different. We can talk about that after we finish this, but I mean that was what we looked at. So it would either be fully vaccinated, which is 2 complete shots, and then I don't know how long after. I think it's 3 months you can get the booster, or 6 months. However, if individuals for either medical or religious exemption purposes decided not to get vaccinated, they would have to test every week, and that would be on their own. If we had an outbreak, they would follow the same rubella policy that we currently have in place, which says they're sent home without pay. So it's very similar to what other vaccine requirements have put into place in the past. It's just going to be new, so it's a change.
So what we do is then add it to our current vaccine policy and just add COVID to that list of required vaccines. So, any questions?
voting it in as a mandatory policy. They in turn decided, well, let's do some incentives to this. They gave 3 days vacation and $300 to everyone that was vaccinated. Those that choose not to get vaccinated had their insurance policy raised. But they did not go to the point of saying your employment is contingent upon getting vaccinated.
We're not saying their employment is contingent upon it, though. They do have that option. And if they chose not to, they would just have to follow the testing protocol.
Yeah, I'm just saying out loud of what,
Yeah,
what they,
no.
because there was nothing in
I
grounds
understand
for that.
exactly what.
So I
what
just
you're
wanted to
saying.
throw that out there of what how they treated that.
And I mean, we just started this process, so I certainly can look and see if those types of incentives might be optional. Please remember, like 90-something% of our employees, it's a very small number that have, made that choice not to get vaccinated. What we'd like to do before we would bring this back to the board is to have a couple more forums so that Dr. Williams and Dr. Pereira could perhaps answer questions by individuals who may still have questions about vaccines and being vaccinated as an adult. So we would want to get some additional input. We just wanted to hear kind of, so then we can take a look at the two things that you just mentioned, like incentives or health insurance adjustments and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I was just giving feedback
Yep.
because obviously they had gone through a lot more than we probably embarked upon. And certainly I'm sure they got legal input, even though they did put it to the board or the supervisors to vote, they still voted 3-2.
Okay.
And again, I'm not against it because obviously I did it, you got me there, but yeah, we're at 90, we're still at 90, I mean, we're still high numbers.
Yeah.
And you're right, maybe it's just a few staff that maybe haven't chosen to do it. But I just hopefully that we're not in that realm of this is where it's gonna be.
And I think that's why I wanted to bring it to the board, because it is a policy change, and so it would be something that the board would have to decide. With the mask, because it is fluid, I'm comfortable with saying that, we can adjust that. But with the vaccine, adding it to our policy, that's something that the board would have to determine. So that's why we would take the policy to our attorneys to make sure we draft it correctly. And but again, we're talking about staff, not student at this point, because staff is for us is much more difficult with subs and all of those type of things. That's the other thing that we're looking at, because if somebody is not and then they're out, and then we're putting a sub, and if we don't have subs, it really puts us in a difficult situation. Not to mention just their health.
People that volunteer as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that it's, we're looking at the health and safety of trying to make sure that we put that first within our
And then all visitors.
And to be honest, brutally honest, those of us that can get the vaccine are getting the vaccine to protect those who honestly cannot get the vaccine. There's no reason if you don't have a medical exemption that you can't get it. I mean, I know that one of the things, hopefully we don't see it here, that they've seen in other communities is a new religious exemption just to this vaccine. Oh, measles, mumps, tetanus, no problem. This one is the one they got the exemption for. So, which is just ridiculous in playing more politics with it than it needs to be. But I'm happy to hear that we do have a high rate already. So that's helpful, and hopefully maybe we get lucky and the vast majority of those that don't are because they have a real medical exemption and they cannot get it.
And again, tonight is an information discussion, there's no action. So
Yeah.
because it is, if we have to bring it back for a policy, we just wanted to get
information.
we just wanted to get some information and get you discussing it, because we know it's going to be, as Mr. Kramer said, maybe other counties, other districts have put students and staff, vaccine requirements, so we can bring back districts that have done that.
And as I recall, Mr. Kramer, wasn't Pima County looking at requiring the schools to do it?
And then it didn't go through because
Right.
they felt that they were overstepping
Not that they were
their
doing-
boundaries.
Not that they were doing it for themselves, but they were trying to apply it to the schools.
Right, and they said that although one former board school board member was voting for it, one of the retired principals said, I think we're overstepping boundaries here for school districts, because again, their school districts should be operating as school districts.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's, I don't see a pro, in my personal opinion, I'm just giving a personal, I mean, we're yet done so well to where maybe we won't have to do, I mean, I can see this in other places in Maricopa County, because their numbers are still low. They're low, I mean, 60%, that's low.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, I'm meeting with Mariposa tomorrow to specifically talk about scheduling the booster. So I will be able to give the board an FYI because I will have to sign everybody up, so I'll know our percentage, because I make the appointments with the health department in Mariposa, so.
And there's only one booster that's been approved, correct?
Correct.
5.
And again, once the 5 to 11-year-olds will be scheduling
Yep. I have that
vaccine clinics for those that want to do that. So we're working with that. So Dr. Williams, Dr. Bader, and Dr. Linderblad, again, collaborate to make sure that we do that, so that all those that want to will be able to from a student. And then at that point, then we can start discussing students if we wanted to go that direction. But again, we wanted to start with the staff because that is a conversation that we know staff are having already. And now that it's been found to be able to allow us to do that, that it's legal to do so, again, we wanted to have that conversation with the board. So, any other questions or comments?
Let's vote.
I have a real problem with the word mandate. I have no problem with the word requirement. Any employee gets to set what the requirements are for you to be in their employ. What I'm worried about is tracking the boosters. This sounds like you're gonna have to hire somebody who's in charge of tracking everybody's, and again, I'm Johnson and
No, I
Johnson.
got it.
You got it? Okay, girlfriend, you got it.
Yeah, Dr.
But,
Linderblad,
I mean, that's a lot of juggling, that's a lot of time. Are you gonna tap somebody on the shoulder? You can't come back tomorrow unless you've got your booster. And again, the boosters just aren't happening yet.
Yeah, and
So that's why I'm just worried
yeah.
about how you're gonna word it.
Yeah, and that's what we would want to work with the attorney and Dr. Linderblad and HR to make sure we draft a policy, and because it has to be a policy. And then we are asking for those that currently have vaccinated to make sure that they give us our card so we know, and then Dr. Linderblad, as you mentioned, will be able to know who has not scheduled the vaccine or the booster and who has, as well as one of the things that we've always done is, again, just try to make sure that we're on top of that with staffing, and Dr. Linderblad has been able to do that. So, but again, this is for discussion. So, and like I said, you know, and knowing that, that's one of the reasons that we try to keep this agenda shorter, because we know there might be some discussion with this. And again, we wanted to get your input.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So looking at using the word requirement as opposed to mandate, I definitely can look at that too, and when we're looking at, it's like shall and may, yeah, I will.
It's more like shall and will.
Yeah.
I guess I still, again, with everything, there's not a lot of science or research out there about this now, the boosters. There's a lot of research out there that those of us that had COVID and those of us then that got the shot, that we're pretty much hybrids, and we're not really giving away too much. We're not shit. There's a lot of research that supports what I just said, saying that. They have done studies on people that have had COVID and have had the shot. We may get it, will be slight, but we're not shedding it, as the word is being used, and we're not spreaders of it.
Well, people.
John, let me just finish. I'm just saying there's a lot of, I'm not here to debate it on it. I'm just saying that's what the research is that I've been looking at. I haven't seen any research opposing where it says, Joel, no, every year, every 6 months, you're gonna need a booster. I'm just saying that, John. I'm not going one side or the other because there's not research out there.
And full vaccination right now is defined as either the one vaccine that allowed you to get one vaccine, or 2 of the like Moderna, you did the 2 doses. The booster vaccine or the booster definition has not been identified. We have some people who may have just gotten their second shot. They won't get the booster right now. But fully vaccinated people are defined as individuals who have completed the, whatever that cycle is. So 2 or the 1 for, is it Johnson & Johnson?
1 for Johnson & Johnson, 2 for Moderna and Pfizer.
Pfizer.
And again, I'm saying there's not a lot of research for people like myself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, and if we go into the field of not mandatory anymore, but that was the word you were, Susan Vespodian said. You know, as of myself, I'm gonna say, well, wait a minute. And I'm just saying me as an, I'd say, well, time out here. Where's the research that says I have to have it? Where's the science that backs it up saying I need to get another booster? That's the thing I don't want us to get into, because we better be sure that we have that behind us, and we've gone so far very well. But now we're going into the realm of, well, really, when is the booster needed?
The problem, and this is kind of exemplary of the entire problem with the vaccine in general, is that people don't understand where we're at with the science, and that this is still cutting edge science, and things are going to be fluid for a while. It's going to be years before we actually have a really good working knowledge on all of this. This is our best bet right now, and really the game is not so much, oh, the vaccine's going to prevent illness. No, vaccines are never meant to prevent illness. Vaccines are meant to give your body the boost to prevent severe illness or death. But this is what gives us the best opportunity to protect the greatest majority of our population.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just stating that.
But that's what people need to understand. Who a lot of people who are against the vaccine in general, that's what they don't seem to
And
understand.
I wasn't speaking about that.
Yeah.
Population. I wasn't talking about that population.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me, myself.
Right, but
As an employee, if I was a teacher, teaching social studies right now, who had COVID and had the shot already, where's the research, if you're telling me I need to get a shot, where's that science data saying I need a booster?
Not there.
well, it's not there right now. And like me, I got the first shot, I got COVID, then I got the second shot.
Right. I'm just bringing that up because we are discussing this, and that's why I want to say, because I don't want to have us as a board saying, this is mandatory, and I'd be, well, wait a minute.
But the problem's going to be is on the, I don't think anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Wonderville, nothing that we're talking about in terms of this potential policy is requiring the booster, correct?
As of right now, no. A fully vaccinated definition is two
Yeah.
rounds or the 1 Johnson & Johnson. That is the definition that we're working with right now. It has nothing to do with boosters.
Well, I was foreshadowing.
No,
Okay.
but I wrote down what you said
Because
also
it's going to be
because,
there, it's going to come out, we're
Yeah.
the discussion.
But that, at that
I
time,
didn't mention what Pima County did, even with what you're talking about.
right, but at that
Those aren't
time,
vaccinated.
but at that time, we might have more science to back up your question at that time.
and
Well, I don't
that's,
have a question, because I've researched what about Johnson and who's done it, who's had it.
sorry.
I always look to see what I about myself and seen out there.
That's why we were hoping if we had Dr. Pineda and Dr. Williams come in a few more times to actually, or even if they did private consult, if an employee wanted to have a meeting with them, they definitely would do that. They do it all the time for us, so that they could ask, a doctor, where's the research with this, we want to make that available before we bring anything back to the board. And we'd like to see how employees feel about it, because we'd like to get some of their input as well, so that we're, hearing everyone's voices in general.
I got a couple wonders. I was wondering, with our teachers and our students, have they had a voice in this process, or have they got any data on that, where they stand?
Not feedback from them yet, so, like I said, the students were not broaching that yet, so from a staff standpoint, we'll discuss it, and we want to bring it to the board first, so.
Yeah, I think, them being the largest stakeholders, at least in the school and and our students, I think we should start getting data on that as far as where they stand. You know, I always reflect and I look at our youngsters, you know, from first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, and wearing the mask. I don't know how adverse they're affected as far as, you know, with depression and anxiety. And maybe we should bring in others in this conversation, like our school psychologists, and get teachers' input, get our students' input to see where it's going. Because I know teen suicide outweighs way more than COVID deaths, and it's such a small percentage. But I think we definitely need to include more voices, and as we move forward. And yeah, that's about all I got.
Thank you. Any other enlightenments, Ms. Fovia?
So just to clarify, the board policy that you're talking about isn't going to touch on boosters at this point in
No.
time?
No,
It's
it
just
is-
going to have a requirement to be fully
Requirements are
vaccinated.
COVID vaccinated, it's
Yeah.
not going to, it's just like measles, I
Yeah,
think
just-
rubella, it'd be just like that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because,
we'll be adding to that policy.
Okay.
It would just, that current policy that we have for required vaccination,
Mhm.
then we would just add COVID-19.
there's only one other required, it's rubella. The preschool's a different conversation, like the staff is required to have a whole myriad of vaccines, which they either get or they don't work for us, because DHS won't give us our license, so
Yeah.
that could be the other piece too. DHS may come back and tell us preschool people have no choice, I don't know.
Would the vaccine, the testing of the unvaccinated teachers, is that on their dime or would it be on
Yeah.
ours?
That would be on them. Again, we would go case by case as far as the exemptions, because, you know, as Mr. Hayes was mentioning, you know, if they don't have a religious exemption for all the others, then all of a sudden they don't now they do for COVID. You know, we have to have that discussion, and we don't want to play the police and all that, but again, that's why we want to make sure that we have a policy that fits what we want. And the thing, you may come back and say, okay, no, we want to just stay where we're at and continue to encourage. I mean, that's going to be the board's determination. So we just want to make sure we get enough information to you, start talking to the staff to provide that information to you where exactly what you're talking about, where they stand, where we're at. But as Dr. Little said, most of our staff is already vaccinated.
Right.
So it may not be that big of an issue.
I mean, just going through my head right now is, you know, the unvaccinated teachers, I mean, if the masks work, they wear a mask.
And that would be, again, could be part of the policy,
Yeah.
you know, but then now we're identifying them to the public of who's not vaccinated.
Yeah.
Or, the way I see it, we're so in a habit of using masks, I think a lot of people will continue using them.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
wears them. We rarely,
Yep.
Yeah, it really has not been an issue.
No.
We've had very few calls to the district about that. And so, you know, again, I think we have, as far as our mass mitigation, a very common sense approach to it.
No, I think so. Also, as far as the religious exemption, how would they go about proving that, or how would they say, you know, it's
There's
against
a
our
form.
religious?
Yeah, and there's a form that we would.
the Arizona Department of Health Services, we currently, they mandate and we are required to report those who have requested religious and medical exemptions for student enrollment, because students don't have a choice. They either have their vaccines or they have the exemptions. If not, they can't attend. And so the medical exemption does require a physician, a doctor from the United States to verify. You know, we've had students who have had cancer and various other diseases that it just wasn't a good time for them right now, so we didn't want to prevent them from attending school. But essentially it would be the same process. The religious exemption just it's very basic. I can send you what we use for students. We haven't even broached modifying those forms yet. We've just been reviewing them. I also finished the Attorney General's, the Attorney General did issue an opinion on this. It's 39 pages. I can send that as well. I've reviewed all of his recommendations within, you know, his interpretation of what the legislation can and cannot do, according to the court ruling that ruled against Mr. Ducey. But I mean, we haven't even really gone down that path yet, because this is literally the first step. It's just to get everyone's input.
To kind of answer your question, Mr. Beach, my understanding from listening to other talks on this is that those religious institutions usually have that as posted somewhere that in their bylaws or something you can actually locate and get that information from fairly easily.
There's a lot of word revisions out there, so.
Yeah, and again, we wouldn't judge any, I mean, that's not our
No.
job to do that, if that's what they say, but again, if they're all of a sudden have the other vaccines and then they're claiming that, and then obviously we'd have a conversation about it, but it's, again, would be on them at this point, if we move forward with it, to get their own testing and all of that kind of stuff, and so.
And I'm not saying we couldn't coordinate that. I don't have, it's not like we just want to be like, oh, you better bring us your test results every week. That's not the intent at all. Like, we can work to figure out what will work best so they're not missing work.
One question, I know the county recently did the incentive for employees, $500 if you show that you're fully vaccinated by the end of the year.
Correct.
Is there any consideration at the moment of following some sort of
I wrote those
incentive
two
like
down.
that?
We haven't discussed it, but again, this is very preliminary. We wanted to make sure, because again, it's a policy change, so we can look at that. But you know, there are, I think, when we look at the public versus private sector, the private sector is saying you get it done if you want to work. The public sector has been more incentivized than what we've seen. And that's the two differences that I just know from a business standpoint. People are, like, you get it done or you're not coming, or you're not working here anymore. But from the public sector, we've seen a lot more of the incentivization. So, but we can look at that as well.
Aside from that and the insurance premiums, were there any other things you wanted to have us look into?
Well, maybe think about, I know we have the capability of rapid testing, and instead of having the teacher, if they opt out, to test every week, why can't they do it?
Right now, we don't have them, that's why. We're picking up new ones, the ones we had expired. We had Nurse Coppola went today, had to pick them all up. Now we have to throw them all out and get more from the county. So I know Pima County did not have rapid test capability last week. I don't know what it looks like this week.
Because that might be an option.
So yeah, that's what I meant. Like, I definitely can coordinate figuring out, like, would they just go down to Mastic and do, because if they do test positive here, we can't accept that positive test. We send them for an actual, you know, either rapid test or one that's at Mariposa, so that we're ensuring, you know, there's a lot of factors that could make something go positive on those by next kids, so.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there is a fairly significant false positive
Correct.
on those.
But they're a great way for us to quickly get information, and the negatives seem to be the negatives don't seem to be false. It seems to be more on the positive. And so, but we definitely would not just be like, oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, we
I'm just throwing things out.
Yep.
Because I'm thinking as a teacher, if I didn't want to get it, having been tested every week, that might be some money. So
they wouldn't have to pay for their test though, because they're still free.
Okay.
Like,
It's just the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the time they have to take off, and if they can't find a test, that's a whole other problem. Also, if there was an outbreak, any unvaccinated person would be sent home without pay.
Any other comments or questions that we can answer?
And this would carry over to Sodexo and
So
ESI.
that's all already required in their private sector.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what ESI is doing, I can ask Ms. Kiddles.
Yeah.
But Sodexo's requiring them.
to see us make sure that we're giving as much information to all the teachers in every school as possible within the restrictions, you know, of HIPAA and FERPA. Because I know that there's certain things that you can't share. But we have a lot of teachers who are paranoid. I'm sure you guys have known, being around this whole institution for so long. And, you know, the negative Nancy's too, who love gossip, and so they, you know, we have these people who will spread misinformation, but there are a lot of teachers who want this information too, as much information as you can give them, and it makes them feel very comfortable. I was thinking about what Mr. Beach said, because I'm a teacher too, and I always want as much information as the administration can give me. And it makes me feel much more secure, so I just thought I'm not saying you guys don't do this, you guys do it already, but it's just a friendly reminder that we should get as much info out to the teachers as possible and tell them what you can share with them so that they know, and because we do have people who don't understand how things work. You know, you guys administrators, you know that they don't understand how many of these things that can't be shared. So I'd appreciate it if you could just give everybody, all the principals, a reminder that they need to share as much information as possible with the teachers, because it does provide them with a sense of security. And I think that Mr. Beach's idea of gathering information from people within, you know, all the stakeholders, the people that are in the trenches there with the kids, is very important as well. Mr. Hayes already mentioned the $500 for county employees, so I won't discuss that. I tend to think that, as I've said this before, about we can attract more bees with honey than we can with vinegar. And I think asking people, again, I know you guys have made fun of me doing this, called it a telethon, but I think it's very important that we tell adults and then within our district to continue to, you know, we try to convince them to get vaccinated, especially people who have very strong feelings and very, very passionate reasons for not getting vaccinated. But I would remind them of the stories that I've told already of people who perished because of this deadly disease and deadly virus, and, you know, left children behind. They have to weigh that out with their political and religious and other beliefs that they have. You really have to weigh. So if anybody's out there and they're saying to themselves, oh, no way, Ramirez, you know, I'm not going to get it, you need to think about your children too, okay? It's very important. And the kids, I think, are going to be okay. Again, we've had 0 fatalities here, you know, from this, 0 deaths, I meant to say, from this. So I think they're going to be okay, and I tend to agree with some of the things that Mr. Beach said about the munchkins. So winters are coming around the corner, so this vaccination, getting vaccinated will be pretty important. Getting your flu shot too, it's pretty important. And I was thinking about what Mr. Kramer said. You know, there's a lot of wisdom to what he said about people that have already gone through this virus, have had it. I mean, what about their natural immunity? There's a lot of evidence stating that people who are getting vaccinated who have already had it, it's not doing anything for them. There's a lot of strong arguments, you know. So it makes me think about what you had said, like mandating it for people who have already undergone COVID and, you know, popped out of it and have natural immunity. There's nothing like natural immunity. And it's just, again, I think we can attract more bees with honey than we can with vinegar. Merck, there's a drug that Merck put out for the virus, especially for the Delta variant. And if you get the virus, if you catch it early and you take this drug, it is supposed to stop it from spreading. So I think that's important that the public understand, because, you know, they know this. There are probably a lot of people out there that don't know this. A lot of ignorant people who don't know that Merck has put out a drug that has stopped this virus from spreading. And so I think it's crucial that they know about this. And I was wondering whether we have disseminated any information with regard to that.
No. I'm meeting with Mayor Posa tomorrow. It's on my list to talk to them about. There's 2 drugs.
I don't know the name of it right now.
There's
so I don't
2.
have it. Yeah.
There's 2. Merck came out with one, and Pfizer came out with the other. I don't know what's been released and what it's not yet. So
You know, we have a lot of tools right now that we've used to fight off this thing, and actually, when you compare it to the Spanish flu, we're way ahead of the ball game. The Spanish flu killed more people, percentage-wise, and killed a lot more people percentage-wise, and we've been very fortunate that we've had vaccines, and that now we have drugs to deal with the virus as well. But, you know, I listen to a lot of my colleagues' arguments and everything, and I think no matter what we all say and how much we try to do, I think this thing just has to work its way through our population just like the Spanish flu did. And I don't foresee that we're going to be out of the woods until probably next summer. So in the meantime, we have to do what we can, as you've mentioned, Mr. Verdugo, with mitigation and masks and so forth to the best of our abilities. But I like that we're getting information with regard to what we've been doing, it so that we stand on solid ground when we make our case for the policies that we have for masks. So I think that's about it. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Sir. All right, very good discussion.
Thank you. So again, we'll bring that back to the next meeting.
All right.
Mr. President, I
Yes.
just wanted to let the board know if it's okay about students.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Our student vaccines will take place on site. I'm going to meet with the health department tomorrow at 3 o'clock to talk about the logistics for 5, 11 and under, and anyone else who isn't vaccinated, like at the high school or a student age. We'll provide those on site. We're gonna figure out all the logistics, what kind of parent permission we have. When you're dealing with 5, 6, 7-year-olds, they're usually screaming, crying, tears, you know, like the doctor's office, so we need to kind of work through that and work on how we're gonna get the parent permission, but I'll be able to provide Mr. Verdugo with some information tomorrow on the staff boosters along with the student vaccines.
You do great work, Dr. Vanderbilt, and our community is very appreciative, as I'm sure speak for the board as well. Appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
That was deflective behaviors because he was acting like a 5 or 6-year-old when he had been shot.
They have not hold you down?
I know. Sorry. Okay. Subject D, proposed and prioritized topics, calls, dates, and times for future board meetings. Mr. Verdugo, anything else?
Yeah,
down there?
thank you. We do have the future topics, but I wanted to share with the board that December 14th through the 17th is the ASBA ASA annual conference, which we have registered everybody today. Thank you to Angie for doing that. But also we have a board meeting scheduled on the 14th. So we'd like to see what the board would like to do. We would like to move to December 7th. We only have one meeting in December, or we could have a telephonic meeting on the 14th in the morning. It could be up to the board, but I just don't think having a regular scheduled board meeting that evening would be good, just because everybody's traveling and all that, and I would hate for to be traveling late. And so if we can discuss, you know, again, moving to the 7th, I think the 7th would be appropriate date that Tuesday.
What about here?
21st, we're off.
What was that?
That's the holiday break or the winter break begins the 20th. We could have the 21st, I mean, I'll come in, but we won't have anybody else working. But I can come in and be here by myself, which is okay.
Man, everything.
Yeah.
Hey, I fought for you guys for that vacation for years. So why would I make you come in?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
2004. But anyway, I don't know. It's up to the board for the 7th.
Sounds good.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with the 7th.
All right.
So we need a motion, an action to change the December 14th meeting to December
So
7th.
you have an action
Yeah.
action items in here, so we can do it.
So
I make a
moved.
motion that we change the meeting from December 14th to December 7th.
And I had a second from John. Anything?
Second.
Yes, I heard you say so. Any further discussion? None? All right. We've got all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
There we go. You guys were going like this, so I just was taking that head nods as yeses. We still are on this, proposed primary policy dates and time for future board, yes.
Yeah, so any other items that, I know we did have some.
You've got your future topics in there, we added another one, because this goes back from 2 years ago, but maybe we'll wait, and I was thinking, Mr. Verdugo, maybe wait till February, because they'll have a better idea. But it was something that Ms. Newman brought up, when COVID hit us. It was giving a presentation about the scholarships, and what the counseling department was doing with scholarships. So I brought that back, we had talked about that, but maybe we want to wait till maybe February when we get a better idea,
Yeah.
so that we can see like from the last 3 years, what that, we added that one in. Anyone else want to add anything else? I'm sorry, I'll just bring that one in because. Mr. Beach?
The future topics, or?
Yes.
Yes,
I just had a question. Did you find anything out on the Wall of Champions, what happened to the pictures?
we'll get you an FYI on that.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
because that might be a future topic.
yes, we're working on that. Yeah, so I'm getting an FYI. I've already talked to Mr. Shaw about it, and he's investigating.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Fulvey?
No items.
No? Mr. Hayes?
No items at this time, thank you.
Mr. Ramirez?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're not gonna have another emergency meeting for funds for the chess team, because I never saw anything come across, and you had mentioned that would be down the line. And so I don't know what's up with them, but if they do make it to the state tournament, I just would like to see us have another emergency meeting in the morning. We did? Because that wasn't in the first
Yeah.
package there with all the other sports. Okay, all right, so just FYI. I appreciate that, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Levin.
And, so I said that. The Sodexo one, that was good, but hopefully we can get a presentation from him himself. So
Sure.
the slides that I looked at were kind of generic. It doesn't answer the questions that I had posed on the contract. So we can get that actual presentation would be good.
If Frank okay, organize that.
Because that's just more of a how school do is used, and then his sheet of, hey, this is what Sodexo is. It's something I get at a recruiting fair.
I don't know if this is the time about the student activities. Can I
That's
ask
the
that?
top, if you can ask for if you want it on the agenda.
I was just noticing there's a Club 2000.
Okay, no, let's go back, we'll get to that one.
Okay.
That's the consent.
Yeah, consent. So you can pull that one out, Mr. Beach.
I just need a.
Okay, no, that's fine. All right, any other items to be added? No? All right. I'm not trying to be a thorn on Sodexo, but I just figured that they are a contractor that we spend $1 million with. so.
Yes.
All right, now we move to approve of the consent agenda. Any matter on the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed as a regular agenda item upon the request of any board member. Do I hear any requests? Starting with Mr. Hayes.
Number 9,
Number 9, which is
personnel actions, volunteers.
okay. Ms. Fobian,
Item 1.
item 1. All right. And Mr. Beach.
I just had a question on the Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District student activities.
Student activities, we poll student activities, so you can ask your question. All right. With that said, do I hear you have one, Mr. Ramirez? You look
Yes.
sorry?
Number 10, E-Parts.
Okay. All right, which number was yours, Mr. Beach?
This was 10,
7?
10 student activities.
Yeah.
7.
Oh, 7?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you.
Yours was
It's
10.
another one.
Yes,
Well, there's
I was
another one.
right, yes. All right. Do I hear a motion then to approve the consented agenda items excluding item number 1, number 7, number 9, and number 10?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and second, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're going in order of this. Item number 1, Ms. Fobian, you had a question.
Yeah, on the approval of the minutes, I know that you have preferred, as you call it, old school, to call for a motion to adjourn. I have never said aye to that. So I would, so it keeps showing up that it was unanimous with me saying aye, and I never have. So if you want to call the motion, I think you have to do the whole deal, which would be noes and abstains, and I would be abstaining.
Well, then I guess you just have to get your nays in there from this point forward. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
You said that you had never said an aye,
Right.
so that means you were just abstaining.
Well, it doesn't mean it, because I also, you have to call the whole thing. You have to ask for ayes, nays, and abstentions.
Well, I do, I always say all those in favor, please say aye.
Roll call vote, you mean?
No,
But I do say all those in favor, please acknowledge will say aye.
right. Do you look at the minutes? Have you seen the grid?
So, yeah, so.
I am not sure.
So, yeah, so
You
you
would-
haven't said aye during that time, so.
I've never
Okay,
said
I-
aye.
So that's
Right,
not-
I
that's not-
understand that, I understand that. But I've always asked for that. If you don't say aye, then I understand what you're saying is, your acknowledgement should be, you have always abstained from that, but you have been put down as an aye, correct?
It is not an assumption that I am abstaining. You have to call it. If you call.
But I'm not doing I'm not taking that notes. So I'm just saying, I'm calling for a roll of acknowledgement of it. I've heard
See,
ayes.
for the sake of the minutes, she won't know. If you're saying that it carries, she's gonna say, oh, well, then she must have said,
I think-
she's not in charge of that.
I think what Susan's saying is, all those in favor say aye, all those that are opposed say nay.
Yeah,
That's, she
You
just
have
wants
to
the
do
nay
the
part.
You want, okay, you're saying I'm skipping the nays. All right,
Yeah,
and the
That's it.
abstains.
I'm abstaining.
Yeah, you have to do the three
All right,
on any vote.
okay.
Yeah,
I usually don't do that for all of them, but I will. But that's, yeah. All right.
So do we want to approve that now?
So, do I hear a motion of the item number 1 of the consent agenda? Is the approval of the minutes of regular public meeting held on September 28th, 2021. Do I hear a motion? Is there a second? All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And those abstaining? Okay. Even though I heard all ayes?
it's what's right.
All right.
It's open meeting law.
No, it's not. When you get all ayes, it's up 5. You don't have to go. All right. Item number 7. That would be student activities. Mr. Beach.
yeah, I just noticed, it looks like it's way out there, 2025 club, $68,000, it just stood out to me as a large amount of money. Is that, what is that?
The class of 2025.
Yeah, it says 68,542.61. It says 2025, I was just wondering, because the rest of them are 3,000, 4,000, 7,000, but 68,000 sort of stood out as something that, you know, I just wondered what it was.
Is that the class of, is that the sophomore class or the freshman class? 2025? Freshman.
Freshman class. So it could be that they brought money up from their middle school accounts. And since they didn't go to Disneyland and things like that.
Okay.
So
They're
it
off
could
to,
have been
they're off to a great start then. Yep, 68,000. Forget Disneyland, let's go to.
Yeah.
They've got prom covered, they've got graduation
Got it
covered.
covered, yeah.
No fundraising for them.
So, we can check on that.
Yeah, that just stood out to me. I was just wondering, I want to be part of that club.
Class, the class. You have to
Yes.
be back with the
Be too
freshman.
young to be on this board then.
That's all. That's all I got.
But that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So you, Mr. Newley,
Yeah, I'll check it. I'll get
FYI,
it. Send it
please.
FYI.
Invested in crypto, make some money off it.
Ah. That much money, they can give their own scholarships. Jeez. All right, do I hear a motion then to approve item number 7, acceptance of student activities auxiliary reports as of 9/30/2021, submitted by the business office?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And those that abstained? All right. I think it passed 5-0. All right, item number 9. approval of the following personnel action items. I think, Mr., who pulled that one?
Mr. Hayes.
No, Mr. Hayes.
Number 9 was mine. I wanted to pull that one off because Mary Hayes is my wife, and even though I don't have any, there's no financial benefit for me or whatnot, I just wanted to pull it out so I could abstain on that one.
All right.
You might sleep in a doghouse tonight.
Yeah. Where's the support? All right. With that said, do I have a motion to approve the following personnel, number 9 of the personnel action, the volunteers?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please unite by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those abstained?
Aye.
And those no? Passes 4-0. All right, item number 10, approval of attached personal action request. And that would be Mr. Ramirez.
Yes, I just wanted to state that I was very pleased to see that Samantha Falco was on here, and that she's going to be a new hiree at Calabasas. She's sharp. She was my former student, went to Germany, did great work with me all along. And I remember one of the projects that she did on fruits and vegetables, and she just knocked herself out. And one of the best ones that any of my kids ever did in all the history, all the years I taught German. And so this is a great hire, and a wonderful gal. She's going to do great things for us, and good job. Very good job. She's got great language skills. Mr. Rizzo, guys might want to tap upon them. But good job, and I just wanted to give her a big shout out and thank you.
Do I hear a motion then to approval of the attached personal action request?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Any more compliments, Mr. Ramirez?
No.
All right. With that said, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was the fifth vote. Ayes. Those abstain? Those noes? All right. Motion carries. Governing board meeting evaluation, Mr. Hayes.
Good and quick.
All right. Thank you. And yes, for those of us that are old school, I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting as of this time of 6:19.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those nays? Those abstains?
Abstain.
4-0.